Really, you see all the people in the waiting room, and you okay. Okay, so I don't need to look at that. Okay, so hello everybody. I'm very excited to be here again with you, to hear your accent, to hear the English accent, and to see familiar faces. And I have to say that I miss you all. I want to talk with you today about Chanukah. What is the real story of Chanukah? So we know what is the story of Chanukah. We were taught that the story of Chanukah is the miracle with the little jar of oil in the temple. We know the story when the Maccabees overcame the Greeks and they came to the temple was impure, and then they couldn't light the menorah. So they found a little jar of oil that was pure, but it wasn't enough oil there to light the menorah for 8 days. It had just enough oil to light it for one day. So a miracle occurred, and they lit the menorah from it to 8 days. Is this the real story of Chanukah? I want to show you today that it's not the original story. The story of Chanukah was completely different. It didn't talk about the menorah at all. It didn't talk about the miracle of the menorah. And when we think about it, it was a completely different story in the temple, but different story. And it's very logical if we think about it. Why? Because, many miracles occurred in the temple. The Mishnah says that at least 8 miracles occurred in the temple every day. And we know that it's not rare to find miraculous stories about the temple and what the things that happened there. So another miracle occurred in the temple. Is this the reason why we have big celebration till today, 8 days? Because of one miracle that occurred in the temple? It shows us that the original story is quite different. And what I want to do with you today is to discover the original story. And when we will discover the original story, we'll try to figure out why the story of Chanukah had changed to this story that we know, the story of the miracle with the light. So I want to share with you the presentation that I prepared. Okay. So what is the original story of Chanukah? So the original, it's very surprising that we don't have a special tractate that gives us the laws of Chanukah. There are laws of Megillah, tractate Megillat Esther, the story of Purim. We have tractate Psachim, right? Psachim deals with Pesach. And we read this, we know the laws of Pesach from this book. We have Shabbat, Eruvin, Sukkah, Yom Tov. We have tractates for all the holidays except Chanukah. Where do we find the story of the laws of Chanukah? At the beginning of Tractate Shabbat, page 21. Then there we read this phrase, this paragraph. The Gemara asks, what is Chanukah? And then the Gemara gives the story that we know, that I've just mentioned. When the Greeks entered the temple, they defiled all the oils there, and then the Maccabees, they overcame them, and they didn't find any pure oil, only one little jar, and a miracle happened, and they lit the menorah from it 8 days. It's very weird to find this paragraph here in the middle of the Gemara. Why? What does it mean that the Gemara asks, what is Chanukah? What? The Gemara didn't know what is Chanukah? Have we found in other place in the Gemara that the Gemara asks what is Sukkot, what is Pesach, what is Megillah, what is Purim? The Gemara never asks this question because we all know what's the story. We know why we do this. What do we ask? We ask how we celebrate Purim, how we celebrate Pesach, okay? Which law we need to obey to. That's what we ask when we deal with the holidays. We do not ask the question, what is Chanukah? It's very surprising that the Talmud itself asks this question. So what does it mean? What does it mean that the Talmud asks this question? Two options. One option is that the Talmud didn't really know what is Hanukkah. They didn't know. They didn't know which miracle occurred that we now have to light candles 8 days. They didn't know. But it's very hard to say that they didn't know. We know that Chanukah, on the historical timeline, Chanukah is the latest holiday, right? At the beginning, there were the holidays of the Torah, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And then Purim. The miracle of Purim occurred on 500 and something BC, 500 years BC. And Chanukah, when did Chanukah happen? 167 or 64 BC. The Mishnah was edited and written approximately at 150, 200 AD. So it means that Hanukkah was the latest holiday in the historical timeline. So they didn't know what happened only 200, 300 years ago. They didn't know. It's very hard to say. So what we can say, if I go into the mind of a researcher that tries to understand the Gemara, I can say, of course they knew the story. But when the sages ask the question, what is Hanukkah? They ask not because they didn't know, because they want to change the story. You know what is Hanukkah? It's not what you think of. It's something else. It's another story that you didn't pay attention to. And now we will tell you the true story of Hanukkah. If we go on this option, now we need to ask ourselves, so what is the original story of Hanukkah? Which story they have changed? And then we will ask, why did they change the story of Hanukkah? So let's go to the first sources of our holidays. We have a scroll, Megillah, from the Second Temple era, which is called Megillat Ta'anit, the scroll of Ta'anit. In this scroll, we are given all the holidays that were celebrated in the Second Temple era. We find there many, many holidays that we don't know today. We hear about Chag Nikanor and other important days. And this scroll gives us a list of all the holidays that they used to celebrate. And when it comes to Kislev, it goes through the year, for the timeline of the year from 12 months. Yes, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet. When it comes to Tevet, Megillat Ta'anit gives us the story of Hanukkah. And it says as follows. On the 25th of month of Kislev is Hanukkah, 8 days. Why? Here we find the story that we know. Because, paragraph 1, because when the Greeks entered the temple, they defiled all the oils there, and when the Maccabees defeated them, they checked and only found 1 jar of oil with the mark of a high priest, which remained undefiled, and then they lit the menorah from it. This is the story that we know. But then we go to paragraph 2. And here the Megillah asks the question, And what justification did they see for making Chanukah 8 days? What is this question? You have just given me the reason why we celebrate 8 days, right? You said a miracle occurred and they lit the menorah for 8 days. So we celebrate Chanukah for 8 days. How is that now? How come you come and say, and what justification did they see for making Chanukah 8 days? You've just given me the answer. And then the Megillah, the scroll, continues to ask the question, wasn't the dedication, Chanukah, which Moshe did in the wilderness only 7 days? And Solomon the king, the dedication, Chanukah of the temple of Solomon, wasn't it 7 days? So why do you do 8 days? And then it gives the answer. In the days of the kingdom of Greece, the Maccabees entered the temple, built the altar, plastered it with plaster, and for 7 days, they were preparing the vessels for service. So they purified the temple, they purified the temple, but not the menorah, the altar. And they prepared and they fixed the altar for 7 days. And on the 8th day, they sacrificed all the sacrifices that they brought to the temple, and they had a big holiday. This is why we do Chanukah for 8 days. It's not the menorah, it's the altar. But now it's very perplexing. On paragraph 1, you gave me the story of the little jar of oil that we know. And then you ask on paragraph 2, but why do we do it 8 days? And you give another reason concerning the altar. So what's going on here? What is the real story of Chanukah? There is a very famous and important professor here in Israel, in Tel Aviv University, called Vered Noam. Her PhD, I think, was on Megillat Ta'anit. She wrote a complete research. She had a very big research on Megillat Ta'anit. And she opened the manuscripts of this scroll of this Megillah, and she wanted to see what is the original version of this Megillah. And what did she find out? That in ancient manuscripts, part 1, what we have read, does not appear. If I go back, if you look here in Megillat Ta'anit, the original scroll, the first source about Chanukah, in Megillat Ta'anit, paragraph 1 that you see here, the story with the little jar of oil, does not exist, does not appear. What we do have, only paragraph 2. And now we can understand it. The Mishnah says, the Megillah says, on the 25th of month of Kislev is Chanukah 8 days. And what justification did they see for making Chanukah 8 days? You know that the dedication of Moses and Solomon was only 7 days, and then it brings the answer of the altar. If I skip on paragraph 1, everything now makes sense. I understand what's going on here. And in original manuscripts, paragraph 1 does not exist. What do I learn from here? That indeed the original story of Chanukah was not about the menorah, it was about the altar. And indeed, when we sing Mao Tzu, I don't know if you sing Mao Tzu in Hebrew or in English. We sing it in Hebrew, of course, but I'm telling you, Japanese. Oh, Philip is here. Thank you. I can assure you that most of the Israelis who sing Mao Tzu do not understand what they are saying, because there are very weird words here in Hebrew. Mao Tzu Yeshuati lechana ele shabeach. Okay, I understand. Mao Tzu, my Lord, I want to praise you. Tikon beit tefilati. You will build the house, your house, the temple. Vesham toda nezabeach. We will sacrifice korban todah, le'et tachin matbeach mitzar hamdabeach. Nobody understands it. What is matbeach? What is menabeach? But never mind, the last sentence is important. As egmor beshir mizmor, I will celebrate with song, what? Chanukah hamizbeach, the dedication of the altar, not the menorah. With the song that we sing after we light the candles of Chanukah, we talk about the altar, not about the Chanukah, not about the menorah. Go to Al Nisim that we say in the Tefillah. We do not mention there the miracle with the menorah, with this little jar. We say, V'idliku nerot b'chatzrot kodshecha. Okay, but we do not mention this miracle. It does not appear there. More than that, we have another book from the days of the Maccabees named Maccabim. We have 4 versions of this book. We lost the original version. It was written in Hebrew. We lost it. It was translated into Greek. And what the version that we have today is the translation of the translation. We translated it into Hebrew from the Greek translation. Okay? So we have the book of Maccabim. And what do we learn? What do we read there? And they, who are they? The Maccabees, celebrated the festival to the Lord for 8 days, like the festival of Sukkot. Oh, another reason why we have Chanukah, why we celebrate it 8 days, because it's like Sukkot. What's the connection? And they remembered the previous days when they celebrated of the festival of Sukkot in the mountains and in the caves, and they went out in the wilderness like wild beasts. So why did they celebrate Chanukah for 8 days? Because the last holiday that they didn't celebrate was Sukkot. This is the previous holiday. So they couldn't celebrate it then because the temple was impure. So now when they purified the temple and the altar, they could celebrate Sukkot again for 8 days. So they celebrate Sukkot on Chanukah. That's why we have it 8 days. We celebrate it 8 days. And they took the Sefer Maccabim says they took the willows of the brook and the branches of the palm trees and they sang a song of praise and thanksgiving. They took something that reminds us the 4 species again on Sukkot, and they took it to the altar and they praised God who gave them courage and salvation from to purify the temple of His holiness. Yes, and this they celebrate. It's very interesting. We find in the Gemara, in our Gemara, Talmud Bavli, we find, there is a disagreement between Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. Bet Shammai, they say, how we light the candles of the menorah. On the first day, we light only 1 candle, and we add 1 candle every day until on the 8th day we light 8 candles. According to Bet Shammai, we do the opposite. We start with 8 candles, yes, and we finish on the last day with only 1 candle. The Gemara asks, what is the reason of Bet Shammai? Halacha, for halacha today, we follow Bet Hillel. But what is the reason of Bet Shammai? The answer, one of the answers of the Gemara is Keneged Parei Achag, against the sacrifices of Sukkot. We start with 14. So I'm sorry, I think we start with 14 on Sukkot, and then each day we reduce 1 until we sacrifice only 8 or 7. So against it, we do with the candles on Chanukah. What's the connection? Here's the connection. They celebrated Sukkot on Chanukah. This is why we do it 8 days. And that's why we celebrate and we sing song for Chanukah HaMizbeach, the dedication of the Mizbeach. So if it's true, and this is the original story of Chanukah, by the way, Sefer Maccabim does not mention at all the miracle with the little jar. So if it's true, and this is the original story, so where does the story of the menorah come from? In other words, why did the Gemara change the story of Chanukah from the altar to the story of the menorah? I do not claim that the miracle with the menorah didn't happen. It did happen. Of course it happened. But the focus of Chanukah was not on this story. The focus was on the altar, the dedication of the altar. Why did Chachamim change the focus of Chanukah from the altar to the menorah? This is the secret. So I want to take you to a journey, to look at the sources of the holidays of light. You know, there are holidays of light not only in our tradition, in the Jewish tradition. We find holidays of light, of course, in Christianity, and we find it also in the Avodah Zarah. Yes, who asked me this question in the chat? Doesn't Chanukah mean dedication? Yes, Nachon, you are right. Chanukah means dedication, so it means this is the original reason, the name Chanukah, Chanukat HaMizbeach, dedication. What is the connection between the word Chanukah and the miracle with the menorah? No connection. We didn't have any dedication of the menorah. We had the dedication of the altar. So it just shows us that the original story was different. So what is the story of the menorah with the light? Rabbi Avram Ibn Chia, a Sephardic rabbi. When I say Sephardic, it doesn't mean that he wasn't Ashkenazi. He lived in Spain, in Barcelona, on the 11th century. He wrote a book named Sefer HaIbur, and there he talks about the holidays of the people of Israel. And he says, I didn't find the in English version of his book. That's why I brought it here in Hebrew. If you read Hebrew, you can read it. He says in his book that the Christians, you know, they celebrate Christmas when? On the 25th of December. Why do they celebrate Christmas then? Because they believe that this is Chag HaMolad. What is Chag HaMolad? The Chag of birth. Birth of who? Birth of Jesus. Where does it come from? We know today that Jesus wasn't born, no, it's not birth, it's birth. He wasn't born on the 25th of December, 2022 years ago. They say that if he was born on the 25th of December, so his brit was on the 1st of January. That's why I think maybe in France or other places in the world, they call the first day of the year, the 1st of January, the day of the brit, because this was the 8th day of Jesus. So where does it come from? Rabbi Avram Ibn Chia claims that Chag HaMolad, Christmas, was an ancient holiday of the idol worshippers. What's so special in this date? Yes, the 25th of December. Something changes in the world.
The winter solstice.
How do they call it?
Sorry, I think it's the winter solstice.
Oh, so let's see. Rabbi Avraham Ibn Chia says that we have 4 seasons. According to the Jewish calendar, we have 4 seasons in the year. We have Tishrei to Kislev. This is the first season. In Chazal, the sages, they call it Tkufa. So the first season is Tishrei to Kislev. What happens in this Tkufa, in this season? The nights are getting longer and the days are getting shorter. We have less light. The night is longer than the day, and the darkness, we get more and more. Yes, it becomes longer, and the light we have less and less, it becomes shorter. Then when the seasons change, we go to the season 2, from Tevet to Adar, it changes. We get, the nights are still longer than the days, but it changes. We get more and more light and less darkness. When we come to Nisan, the 3rd season, now we have the opposite. We have now the darkness is still reducing. It's still, we have less and less darkness and more light, but then the day is longer than the night. And when we come to the 4th season on Tammuz, so then the day is still longer than the night, but then we have less light and we have more darkness. So if the world was created on the 1st of Tishrei, okay? What the first man, Adam HaRishon, what did he see? He saw that the darkness is he gets more and more darkness in the world. The nights are becoming longer and longer. So what did he think? He thought that the world goes to destruction because he sinned. So now the world is going to fill up with the darkness, and this is the end of the world. Only when it changed and he saw that the days are becoming longer and there is more light in the world, he understood that this is the nature. When is the day that the seasons change between 1 and 2? According to Rav Avram ibn Chia, when we start getting more light, it's on the 25th of December. This is the day when we start getting more light, and the days are becoming a bit longer than what they were before. They are still shorter than the nights, but they are longer than what they were before. So this is the day of Molad. I'm going back to Rav Avram ibn Chia. He said, this is the day, 25th of December was for the idol worshippers, Chag Molad. Molad of what? Birth of what? Birth of the sun. Birth of the light in the world. And they had a celebration, and they celebrated this day, the 25th of December. What did the Christians do? They took this holiday, they took this day, and they changed this day from being Chag HaMolad, Chag, the birth of the sun, they change it into the holiday of what? Of Jesus. Chag HaMolad of the sun became Chag HaMolad of Jesus. Yes, that's what they did. Molad, birth of the light, sun, became Molad, birth of Jesus. This is the 25th of December. This is the source. We need to know that many of the Christian customs are originally customs and laws that they took from the idol worshippers. We have another rabbi, Rabbi Menachem Amiiri from Provence, and he said that this is the source of Christianity. The source of Christianity is in Babylon. That's why in Hebrew we call them Notzrim, after the name of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. And we know, Rav Menachem Amiiri says, that we know that in Babylon they worship the sun. And that's why the holy day in the week was Sunday. The Christians adopted these customs to their religion, and until today, this is their holiday, Sunday. The light, the birth of the light. 25th of December, Chag HaMolad, Christmas, the birth, instead of the light, the birth of Jesus. This is the holiday. I'm sorry, I cannot read all what you write on the chat. What is the What is the light in Judaism? I think when the sages saw on the first century how the Christians adopt this custom from the idol worshiper to worship the light, and they had a special holiday. In Judaism, we have another light. When I go to Genesis chapter 8, I read it, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. And then there were 6 days of creation. What did he do on the first day? He created the light. God said, let there be light. And there was light. There was evening and there was morning, first day. And then the second day, the third day, and then fourth day. What was created on the fourth day? God said, let there be lights in the sky to separate day from night. He created the sun and the moon. So if he created the sun only on the fourth day, what is this light that he created on the first day? According to Judaism, there is another light in the world. It's not just the physical light that we know from the sun. We have another light. According to the Midrash, God kept this light of the first day to the tzaddikim. There's another light. It's not only something physical. There is a spiritual light in the world. The idol worshippers and the Christians who followed them, they do not accept it. They said, no, there is light. We worship the sun. We have a celebration, Chag Molad. At this day, when days become longer, we celebrate the existence of the physical light. We Jews says, yes. We Jews, you say, yes, you are right. There is physical light. It's very important to our lives, but there is much more, it's deeper and more profound light in the world. It's something spiritual, which was created on the first day. Until today, we use light to symbolize what? Enlightenment. What is enlightenment? To understand something, to see something that I didn't see before, not physically, but in my mind. When I want to say that I understand, we say in English, I see. Light, in Hebrew we say, if you taught me something that I didn't know before, we say, He'arta et enai. You lit my eyes. You gave me light, a new perspective on life. This is light. This is what light symbolizes. This is the light of the first day. That's why we say in Tfilat Arvit, Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir, a new light shall shine forth on Tzion. What do we mean by that? That in the days of the Geula, days of the Messiah, there will be another light, a new light in the world. Which light? The spiritual light. A new way to understand life. We will understand things that we did not understand before. It's a new perspective, something that we couldn't imagine. That's why we say we want to be light to the nations. What does it mean, light to the nations? That they will look at us and they will admire us and they will follow us. We will be like light to them. And this is the story of the menorah. The menorah in the temple, it's not just a light. We will read in a few minutes, we will read another midrash about that, but we'll say now that the menorah is not just a light. Menorah is the symbol of wisdom in Jewish tradition. That's why it's so important for us. And even the candles that we light every Shabbat, why do we do it? Because we want to bring shlom bayit, peace, connection to the people in our house. It means that light brings shalom. Light brings understanding each other. Light brings connection between people. This is the spiritual light of the first day. So if it's true, now I can understand why the sages, in purpose, they changed the story of Chanukah. The original story of Chanukah was about the altar, how they dedicated the altar and they celebrated this dedication for 8 days. Yes, this is the original story. But when Chachamim come to the story and they ask in the Gemara, what is Chanukah? They want to change the focus of the story. It's not the altar. It's something else. You, the Gentiles, in all over the world, idol worshippers, Christianity, you celebrate now your holidays, the holidays of your light, the physical light, the sun, the nature. We Jews say that there is something above nature, something else. There is another light in the world that we want to celebrate. This is the light of the menorah. That's why Maharal from Prague says that at the beginning we celebrate Chanukah. They celebrate their Chag HaMolad, the Molad of the sun, on the 25th of December. We celebrated our light on the 25th of Kislev. Maharal Prague says that when the world was created, what was the date of the creation of the world? The first day when God created the light, it was on the 25th of Elul. You see how it's all connected? 25th of Elul, the first light was created. But then we got the physical light. And it was less and less and less until the 25th of Kislev. Then the light the days became longer in the world, and we got more light. At this moment that the whole world celebrates the physical light, we celebrate the light that was created 3 months ago in the creation of the world, the spiritual light. If it's true, we can now claim something else. We can say that the miracle of Chanukah, this little jar of oil story that we told, it's just an extension of another miracle that occurred in the temple every day. You will see now, it's the same miracle. I brought it from Tractate Shabbat. Rav Sheshet raised an objection. He said, there is a pasuk, michutz me'oel hamoed, Aharon yadlik et menorah me'erev ad boker. Aaron should light the menorah from morning to evening before the Lord. What does it mean that Aaron, a Kohen, needs to light the menorah before the Lord? Does God require its light? Who needs the light in the temple? God does not need it. The Israelites, they don't need it because they had a pillar of fire. They don't need it. So who wants this light of the menorah? The Gemara says, on the fourth line, rather, the lightening of menorah is testimony to mankind that the divine presence rests among Israel. There is something that the menorah symbolizes. It shows the world that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, rests among Israel. How is that? The Gemara says, what is this testimony? Rav said that is the westernmost lamp in the menorah, in which the measure of oil placed was the same measure of oil as was placed in the other lamps. And nevertheless, he would light the others from it each day, and with it he would conclude. What does it mean? The Kohen, the high priest, He put the same measure of oil in all of the lamps in the menorah. But still, he did it on the evening. All the lamps, except the western lamp, were extinguished by the morning. A miracle occurred, and the western lamp was continuing to light to the next day. You see what's written here? The story with the miracle with the oil. It's the same miracle. You had little measure of oil, but it was enough to light from it for 24 hours. All the other lamps were extinguished after 12 hours. But this western lamp, it was continuing to light to 24 hours. This is the miracle with the light. So maybe the story with the Maccabees, with how they used this little jar of oil, it's not, yes, it's a miracle, but it's just an extension of a miracle that occurred every day in the temple. So it's not this miracle itself. It's something what it symbolizes. And it symbolizes that we have our own light. Our own light, it's not the light that we use to cook, to read and to see other people. It's not the physical light. It's the spiritual light of the menorah, the wisdom. That's why the Gemara says, if you want to be smart, you should live in the south. If you stand somewhere, stand in the south. Why? Because the menorah was placed in the south. The menorah is a symbol of wisdom. And this is the testimony who we are. This is the testimony that God dwells between us. We have something else. We have a new light. We look at the world in different eyes. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, he says it's a different drasha, but I took it from there because it explains what is the idea of our light. Rav Sachs says, how do we estimate the strength of the Jewish people? And he says we shouldn't count them because we are very, very small. If you want to know the strength of the Jewish people, our contribution to humanity, look what we gave to humanity. And here we find something very surprising and fascinating. We are so small, but the percentage of our contribution to the humankind is vast, is great, is big. We gave here, he says, think in the second paragraph, think only of the makers of modern thought. In physics, Einstein; in philosophy, Wittgenstein; in psychology, Durkheim; in anthropology, Levi-Strauss, etc., etc. Jews have won 48 Nobel Prizes in medicine. Yes, in finance, 30%, 40% of prize Nobels in finance are Jews, etc. What we gave to the world is much more than our percentage in the population of the world. What does it mean? That we have special light. We look at the world in different perspective. We know what the world wants, needs, and we solve problems. This is our light. That's why when we celebrate Chanukah, our story had changed. It's not the altar anymore. It's not the temple itself. It's what the temple symbolizes. And the temple symbolizes the menorah, it symbolizes our wisdom, not the sacrifices, the wisdom. That's why the symbol of the state of Israel is the menorah, not the altar. Who decided that the menorah is the most important tool, vessel in the temple? Who said? The menorah, that we have altar, we have table, we have on Kodesh. Why did we choose menorah as the symbol of the state of Israel? This is why. We bring new light to the world. This is the story of Chanukah. And maybe according to that, we understand why one main halacha of Chanukah is that we are not allowed to use the light of the Chanukah. That's what we say. We do not have permission to enjoy the light of the Chanukah. We cannot, you have now the light of the Chanukah, you cannot open a book and read to the light of the Chanukah. Why? אין לנו רשות להשתמש בהם, אלא לראותם בלבד. Because if you use the light of the Chanukah, of the menorah, you use it in the terms of the physical light. You use the physical light. While when we light the menorah, the Chanukah, we want to say to the world that we have different light that we do not use to read or to do something with it. The existence of light itself, this is its purpose. That there will be light, the wisdom, how we look at the world. It's the light of the first day, not of the fourth day. So now if I go back to our first source from Tractate Shabbat, yes, and we now read in the Gemara, what is Chanukah? And now we read the story of the Maccabees with the little jar of oil that they lit the menorah for 8 days. Now we understand the secrets. The story of Chanukah originally was completely different. Something about the altar, the dedication of the altar. That's what they did there. They celebrated Sukkot for 8 days. This is the source of. But Chachamim, when they asked in the Gemara what is Chanukah, they wanted to change the focus of Chanukah, to take it the focus from the altar to the menorah, from sacrifices to light and wisdom. And they did it because it was their answer to all the goyim around us, who celebrated, who worshipped sun, who worshipped the nature, who worshipped the physical light. And we say till today, when we light the menorah, we Jews have different lights. We have the light which is testimony that God dwells among us. We look at the world in different perspective. That's why we are so clever. We are Jews. And we contribute to the world wisdom. This is our light. So I think this is the real story of Chanukah. And now I think we have another meaning why we do what we do, why we light the candles, why we cannot use the candles, and why actually the Chanukah is like the menorah of the temple. When we light the Chanukah, you know, according to halacha, we don't need to light the candles on Chanukah. We can just take 8 candles and light a candle. Why do we have this whole thing with 8 arms? It's kind of menorah. Yes, in the Mikdash, the menorah was only with, it had only 7 arms. We cannot do the same thing in our houses. That's why we do 8. But when we light the Chanukah, this is the menorah. This is our wisdom. This is the real story of Chanukah. So thank you for listening. Maybe now you will open your microphones. Avril, can you open? If you want to write something in the chat, or you have any questions, proposals. Yes, day 8 is above physical number 7. Thank you very much. Yes, in the chat. You read the chat? 8, the 8 in Kabbalah, 8 is above nature. 7 is nature. Yes, because the world was created in 6 days, but then we had the 7th day. 8 is something above nature. That's why Brit Milah, we do on the 8th day, because it's above nature. Shmini Atzeret, we do on the 10th day, because it's only something between, it's a special holiday for Israel and God, so it's above nature. That's why Chanukah is 8 days. Right, this is different kind of light that we have. Yes, thank you. Any other comments, questions?
I'd like to come back a second to this business of the winter solstice.
Yeah.
In the Gregorian calendar, the winter officially starts on the 21st of December, not the 25th. So where actually who found the date of the 25th? I mean, was it the Christian Church, or was it just a mistake, maybe?
I think that in ancient times they didn't have the ability to
Ah, yeah.
see in which exact day the light starts to
They weren't
so
accurate.
that's
Yeah,
why
yeah.
I believe that they assumed that it was on the 25th. It's not, it wasn't the church or the Christians, the idol worshippers. They saw it in ancient times before Christianity. They assumed that it was on the 25th, and then the Christians took it. But when we have the ability to see exactly in which day light becomes stronger and longer, so they changed it to the 25th.
Because it would have been logical to have it on both on the same day, because then you could have said it was divine intervention. But if it was on separate days, it's very doubtful.
You need
But
to
I
remember
mean,
that the Gregorian calendar was adopted by the church only on this, and I think on the 6th century, not
century.
in the beginning.
The Gregorian. I thought the Gregorian
I think.
calendar
Look at
was
Wikipedia. Look at Wikipedia. Look at
okay.
Wikipedia.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wikipedia,
Yeah.
the rabbi there will tell you all the answers.
Yeah, okay. Rabbi Wikipedia. Yeah. Yeah.
Rabbi Wikipedia. You do not know it? Rabbitson Wikipedia. She has all the answers. She has all the answers. Yes, but it's very interesting. Yes, Chanukah is the holiday of our light, not of their light. Yes, it's very good. Questions, comments? Okay, so I will say thank you very much for being here. I miss you all. I see your faces and I miss you.
Thank you very
God, we will
much.
Pop
meet
in,
soon.
Rabbi Ido,
pop in
Yes.
over Chanukah if you have the time. Pop in over Chanukah to see us.
Rabbi Ido,
Okay.
Rabbi
Yes,
Ido,
yes, Ken.